Welcome back to the podcast. I'm Amanda.
I'm Laura.
And I'm Kendra.
And we are on the last two Blue Zones book club podcasts. We talked about the 5 different areas that are pockets of blue zones. And now we are moving into how to create your own blue zone, which would be the ideal. So Kendra, tell us all the things.
Yep. So we're wrapping up here, but we still want to remind you that we care about you and we want you to feel your best. So just sit back, relax, take all these little nuggets in. We have tried to just create just some maybe food for thought, and that's what we're going to do today. So we're going to talk about some food guidelines. And just a reminder, we are your doctors, but we are doctors, but we're not your doctors. Psych. This is all educational and not medical advice. So just take it all in. And reminder, blue zones are pockets throughout the world where greater than expected percentages of people live to 100. And they actually live to 100 and they're well. They're walking, talking, and, still functioning at a very high level. We're using the book by Dan Buettner called The Blue Zone, Secrets for Living Longer, Lessons from the Healthiest Places on Earth. We'll have a link to the book, or you can also watch the Netflix series, or both. The original idea behind Blue Zones was in a way to reverse engineer longevity. The Danish twin study in 1996 showed only 20 to 25% of how long we live is heritable. So the rest is related to lifestyle and environment. Boom. Admittedly, this book can be controversial and people always have opinions, right? These are observations that Buettner made in his book about these places, and sometimes it may just be correlation rather than causation. But what we're talking about, really what we want to focus in on are just the habits, the big picture here. The people in these regions have some interesting habits and they're finding that there is sort of trends here. So just kind of look at the, 10,000 foot view. We've already talked about the individual blue zones, but we're moving into how to build your own blue zone. We previously talked about the 9 habits that pop up repeatedly in the blue zones, and that we've seen them in 5 cultures over 4 continents. So it's worth considering. Today, we're going to talk about food. Yay, my favorite. Yay. The idea isn't to kill the pleasures of eating, but to crowd out the junk from our daily consumption. Many of us overeat. It's just too easy. The standard American diet, what we refer to as the SAD. On average, people in blue zones eat about 20% less than Americans do, and they just make better choices. So here are some recommendations based on their habits. They aim for at least 95% plant-based diet. Leafy greens combined with seasonal fruits and veggies, whole grains, and beans dominate the blue zone's meals year-round. Olive oil tends to be the most used oil in the blue zones. And a few tips that they recommend are keep fruits and veggies on hand. Consider frozen if fresh not available, which is nice because some of these blue zones do have fresh available most of the year, which is difficult here we are in Southwest Missouri. Like, we do have a winter and nothing grows. So when it is, fruit and veggie time of the year, like, hoard them all and cut them up, put them in baggies, put them in the freezer. It's great to just be able to grab them out of the freezer. I know I do that a lot because we get quite a harvest from our garden. I can't cook it all at once. So freezing is great. Using olive oil instead of butter to dip your bread, drizzle over steamed and broiled veggies, cook with. Think about that. Try whole grains like oats, barley, brown rice, and ground corn. Blue zone grains tend to have less gluten than our modern wheat strains. Use leftover veggies to make soups. Another good thing. Cut up those veggies, freeze them, and then bust them out when you're making soup or chili. We do that a lot. Another habit they tend to have is retreat from meat, which this one might not go so well at Noble Hill Ranch, where we have Angus beef cattle walking around everywhere. But the people in the blue zones, 4 of the 5 blue zones ate meat, but did so sparingly. It was more like a celebration, like, we're going to have steak tonight. Let's celebrate. Couple of their tips were don't make meat convenient. So don't stock up on a lot of lunch meats, hot dog, sausages. And this is what I hear too. Eat like fresh meat. So a lot of people get hung up on grass-fed versus grain-fed beef and like pork and all these things. But basically, if you are eating the meat, the raw meat, cooking it straight from the animal and not the processed. So lunch meats, they're processed. They, grind up all the bits, press them into what looks like a ham, but I'm not sure. And the lunch meats can be real high in sodium too. hot dogs, sausages, all of that is some processed bits and put in a casing and call it good. So eating the raw meat, like, the cuts of meat tends to definitely be preferred. Like I said, they reserve meat for special occasions. And sometimes we saw in some of the blue zones, they tried the plant-based alternatives like tofu, impossible meat, which I'm not really sure what that is, and black bean patties. But I would say overall, some of these can be more processed or whatever. They're not going to give you a lot more of that health benefit. So if you are going to reserve your meat, stick to the like fresh cuts. Definitely fish is preferred, chicken, turkey, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Speaking of fish, it's interesting because we do think of fish as being like this super healthy food, but these blue zones actually eat fish, but not in heavy amounts. So they might have up to 3 small servings a week, and typically it's small, inexpensive fish like sardines and anchovies. And they have lower levels of mercury and chemicals that contaminate like gourmet fish. So the longer a fish is floating around in the ocean, the more they accumulate mercury and those other toxins that are hanging out there. So like those larger fish, the predator fish like swordfish, shark, and sadly, tuna. I know a lot of
That's
us
my
love tuna steak.
favorite.
I
Oh,
know.
seared tuna is my
Yeah.
favorite.
So just
Well,
don't eat it every
yeah,
day.
right? If I could
Yeah.
get it 3 times a week, I would be set.
So
Definitely.
actually, the tuna fish, those cans of tuna fish are probably better for you
Yeah.
on the
Then
whole because it's the smaller tuna that are just
yeah.
the giant fish that
Yep.
have eaten other contaminated fish over and over and over. Make it
Yeah. Give
Yeah.
me world's deadliest catch. I'll take that every day.
Yeah.
still like unless you're eating it daily and everything in moderation, right? So
Right.
Yeah. So take home there, the bigger fish have more mercury and contaminants. Also, farmed fish. We want to try to steer clear of those guys because they're raised in these overcrowded pens that are kind of like a lot of stuff floating around in there, chemicals. They might require antibiotics, pesticides in there, special coloring to make the meat look more natural and appetizing. So yeah, that's where
yeah,
salmon. Yeah.
if we're
Yeah,
having
you're
to add stuff to make it look like the actual meat that it is, that doesn't seem good.
Yeah, no, not appetizing. Yeah, so look for wild caught fish. Reducing dairy is another thing that these blue zone folks do. The Seventh-day Adventists drink cow's milk, but the majority of the rest of the blue zones don't consume much cow's milk. They use goat and sheep's milk, mostly as fermented yogurt, sour milk, or cheese. And about 65% of the world's population is lactose intolerant. So I think isn't it the Northern Europeans who are more lactose tolerant, but the
Yes.
rest of us might not be lactose tolerant. And so cutting back on the dairy will help us out. Goat's milk does contain some lactose, but it also has lactase in it. So that makes it easier to digest. Daily dose of beans. I have a brother-in-law. It's so funny. Like he had some food trauma growing up and his mom like made him clean his plate. And all you have to do is say the word beans and he starts gagging. Like you can
Oh
actually make him.
no. No. That is severe trauma.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You just have to start talking about different kinds of beans, and you can actually probably get them all the way to vomiting. But I love beans. I think they're delicious, and the people in blue zones also love beans. So eat some. The people in blue zones consume nearly 4 times as many beans as Americans. So we can do better by trying to eat at least 1 cup of cooked beans daily. So some tips there, just keep some beans on hand, both dry beans. So I'm going to be honest, I don't do the dry beans that much. If I do them, I'll do them in the Instant Pot because it's just a lot of time to try to get those dry beans cooked. But canned beans, yeah, canned beans are great and they're still really healthy for you. Learn how to make some bean dishes that you enjoy. We have a lentil soup that we really like, black bean chili. It's a fan favorite. And throw in some kidney beans in your regular chili. Also delicious. My daughter and I actually love to just eat chickpeas straight with a little olive oil and salt. So yum. Sprinkle them on salads to sneak in some extra beans. Okay. Next thing they do is they slash sugar. Oh, that cut cuts me real deep there,
Sorry.
especially when I'm at work.
Oh, no.
Last night I was at work and I was like I had some little mini packs of Skittles, and I was like offering them to the nurse practitioner. So they're like, no, I've had enough sugar today. I'm like,
What?
I need to be like you.
I don't have that self-reflection ever.
I know. I have no either usually, but I did last night. I was like, oh, but also I was like, okay, well, I can just keep these Skittles myself. So, but the Blue Zones people don't eat as much sugar. And between 1970 and 2000, added sugar in American food rose by 25%. So, and that the thing that is tricky about that is a lot of times it's not desserts, like it's being put in other food because it enhances the palatability of the food. But the problems with sugar is it suppresses the immune system, it spikes insulin levels, and has a lot of other negative effects. Blue zone inhabitants eat sugar, but they eat it intentionally, so not as a hidden added ingredient. Probably ketchup isn't loaded with sugar and corn syrup like it is here, etc. Spaghetti sauce, things like that. On average, they eat 7 teaspoons of added sugar compared to the 22 teaspoons of added sugars the average American consumes. So, tips: avoid sugar sweetened sodas, teas, or fruit drinks. And, if you like the occasional soda, maybe say I'll have one once a week, or, just you're not drinking a 6-pack of regular Coca-Cola a day. Limit added sugar to 1 treat per day or less. Check label. And it's so interesting if you go on a sugar fast and you're like, I'm not going to eat sugar for a little while, it takes probably like 3 or 4 days until it becomes much easier. And you're like, oh, my brain was really hooked on that stuff.
On purpose. I mean, industry does it
Right.
on purpose. That's why it's added
Yeah.
ubiquitously to get us hooked.
Yes. Have you guys seen that Simpsons episode where Homer comes into like possession of a truckload of sugar? Like it accidentally
No.
got dumped on the side of the road. It's like this giant mountain of white powder. And he's like, first you get the sugar, then you get the power, then you get the women.
Oh, no. That escalated quickly. Yes.
Well, it is a white powder. Like,
Yes.
So check your labels for added sugar items like salad dressings, processed foods, ketchup, and sauces. They can have incredible amounts, and you could waste your 7 teaspoons a day just on your spaghetti sauce when you'd rather be having some dark chocolate.
Absolutely.
Then watch out for, quote, low fat. Many times that means extra sugar because they have to do something to make it taste better. So sugar is a lot of times the go-to for that.
All right. So moving on to do snack on nuts. So the Adventist Health Study found, and the Seventh-day Adventists are the ones who live, the Loma Linda Blue Zone is what we talked about. So they actually are vegetarians, but the rest of them, eat meat. But anyway, they did an Adventist health study that followed these people for a long time and found that people who eat nuts outlive those who don't by 2 to 3 years. Nut consumption is in many of the blue zones. So in Sardinia and Icaria, I can't remember how we said that we're supposed to say that, but they eat almonds. In Nicoya, they prefer pistachios, and the Adventists eat mixed nuts, all kinds of nuts. And eating a variety of nuts means that you're getting sources of vitamin E, magnesium, selenium, which is especially good for the thyroid, and it's high in Brazil nuts. You just need 3 Brazil nuts a day to get your daily allowance of selenium. You're getting protein, folate, ALA, which is the only omega-3 fatty acid that comes from plant food. When you think of omega-3s, a lot of times you're thinking of fish oils and those sorts of things. But, walnuts and everything have an omega-3 that comes from plants. So some tips that they suggest to help you with this: keep nuts on hand for snacks and travel. Add nuts and seeds to your salads and soups. Incorporate nuts into regular meals as a protein source. And then eat nuts before a meal because the fats and protein in it slow the absorption, so it can help your glycemic load.
One thing about the selenium and Brazil nuts, for people who you guys might know this, but for people who treat people with hypothyroidism or Hashimoto's disease,
Mhm.
a lot of those people are deficient in selenium. So
Mhm.
throwing some Brazil nuts in there might help.
Yeah, for sure. Like that's one takeaway from the integrative medicine fellowship that I did was like thyroid issues, selenium. Good choice. 3 Brazil nuts a day. So I do that. All right. So moving on to sour on bread. So commercially available American bread usually starts with bleached white flour. Again, check the labels because it's sometimes shocking. But Blue Zone's bread is very different. It's typically made with multiple whole grains like wheat, rye, and barley, which give us things like tryptophan, selenium again, magnesium, and especially fiber. Fiber is a good thing that only comes from plants. So they either eat the multiple whole grain breads or sourdough bread. And then the special thing about the way sourdough bread is made is that it usually uses lactobacilli, which, is a probiotic, is a good bacteria in our gut, which starts the digestion of the starches and gluten. So the traditional breads that they eat in the blue zones have a lower glycemic load, which also means that your blood sugars don't spike as much as our traditional grocery store bread that we pick up off the shelves usually. So tips, make your own sourdough bread. I know that was a wild craze during COVID. Everyone had their starter sourdough mix. And then you could also try sprouted grain bread. That is especially great to eat. And a tip, if it's going bad on you, you can keep it in the freezer or in the refrigerator to make it last long enough if you don't plow through a whole loaf quickly. Another tip is to choose whole grain rye or pumpernickel bread, but check the label because a lot of our supermarket pumpernickel breads or rye breads actually don't have that listed as a first ingredient. I'm getting the idea that many of the things were pumped or sold in the United States, maybe not as advertised. So for a general rule, if you can squeeze your slice of bread into a little ball, then that's probably a slice of bread to avoid and go for the crustier, the harder breads that, in those
That's
little
so fun.
I know it is. I'm thinking of those little PB&Js that you get out of the freezer, with the softest bread of all time.
Yeah.
Apparently, maybe that's not so whole grain. All right. And then next is go wholly whole. And by that, we mean minimal ingredients, raw, cooked, ground, or fermented, and not highly processed. So, think about this. People in blue zones aren't eating egg whites, they're eating the whole egg. They're not spitting the fat out of their yogurt. It's just the yogurt as it was made. They don't strain the pulp out of fruit to then try to make juices or smoothies or whatever. They eat the whole item. And so some tips for that are to avoid factory made food, to avoid foods wrapped in plastic, to avoid pre-made or ready-to-eat meals unless you're very choosy about it. And then as often as you can, shop at farmers markets or community farms. That accomplishes a lot of good things. Shopping locally, it's going to be fresher because it didn't have to be transported from Brazil, those sorts of things. And then lastly, to wrap it up, drink mostly water. It turns out that Blue Zone inhabitants drink pretty much 4 things: coffee, tea, water, and wine, with very few exceptions. So they're not pumping Gatorades. They're not getting their daily dose of Diet Dr. Pepper, as I drink Diet Dr. Pepper as we're speaking. But anywho, they don't do that. So encouragement to drink more water.
Yeah, I could probably do the water, tea, coffee, although the ratio is more like coffee 80%, 10% tea, 10% water. Does that meet the mark? I don't know.
Then you find people like Warren Buffett who drinks pretty much Coca-Cola and he's almost 100 years old. So
yeah, truly.
There's always
some
exceptions.
of the some of the centenarians are like, what's the key to living? Whenever you ask those people, it's the, like we talked about before with one of the Blue Zones things, it's like they are a healthy person who happens to be drinking. It's not that the Dr. Pepper gave them their health.
No.
They just
grandma drank
other
3
the elixir of life.
But boy, I would like to latch onto that because see,
I know, right?
let's do this.
This is
I like it when they interview centenarians and they're like smoking and having Dr. Peppers and they're like, that's what it is.
Yeah. They're like bacon.
Pretty sure that's not what it is.
Every day. Yeah. Bacon is the fruit of youth.
Yeah. My great grandmother lived to 92 and ate like a stick of butter a day, I swear. But
yeah, for sure. Well, We hope that you have been able to enjoy our food talk today. As a foodie, I enjoy talking about it and also indulging in it whenever I can. So I'm up for any new recipes. Shoot them our way. We'd love to hear what you're fixing in the kitchen. And leave us a review because it helps other doctors find us and move us up on the list. So scroll down, give us 5 out of 5 stars, and leave us a review. And just a question, if you're going to be traveling to Las Vegas in September, this month maybe, for ASEP, then come join us. We are hosting an emergency medicine networking event at the Libertine Social Lounge at the Mandalay Bay, where the conference is, on Monday, September 30th from 5 to 7 p.m. Click the link. It will include it in the show notes to buy now. And we only have a limited number, so you got to go today and get them. Last year's event sold out. We also want to thank one of our gold sponsors, Brault. Brault offers scalable services to support your emergency medicine practice, whether you're looking for full service RCM partner, a support team to manage your business functions, or a group of experts to advise and grow your practice. Brault has everything you need under one umbrella. So until next time, you are whole, you are a gift to medicine, and the work you do matters.